A Rolls-Royce Phantom costs more than most people's houses. It's the car kings buy. Popes ride in it, billionaires wait 2 years for one, and the man who built it was homeless by age 4 and burying his father by age 9. No school, no money, no connections. Just a kid selling newspapers on a London street corner. This is how that kid built the most expensive name in the automobile industry. His name was Henry Royce. Born in 1863 in a tiny village called Walton, the youngest of 5 kids in a family that ran a small flour mill. The mill failed. His father couldn't recover from it, and by the time Henry turned 4, the Royce family had lost everything. No home, no income, nothing to fall back on. 5 years later, it got worse. His father died. His mother took a job as a maid just to keep food on the table, and 9-year-old Henry dropped out of school to sell newspapers on the street. No inheritance, no formal education past childhood. If you were placing bets on which kid in London was going to build a car empire, nobody would have picked this one. But somewhere in that struggle, Henry Royce developed something you can't buy. An obsession with doing things properly because he'd seen exactly what happens when things fall apart. An aunt noticed he was sharp, sharper than his circumstances suggested, and she paid for him to get an apprenticeship at the Great Northern Railway Company. This is the part of the story people skip past. Royce didn't walk into some prestigious engineering school. He walked into a railway workshop and started learning how machines actually worked with his hands from the ground up. For 3 years, he studied everything he could get his hands on: mechanics, carpentry, mathematics, while working full days around steel and steam. When the money to fund the apprenticeship ran out, most people would have quit and taken the first job available. Royce didn't. He kept working odd jobs at night just to scrape by and kept teaching himself engineering in whatever hours were left. He eventually paid his own way into evening classes on electrical engineering, the hot new technology of the era. By 19, that self-taught grinding paid off. He landed a job as chief electrician at a manufacturing company. For a kid who'd been selling newspapers a decade earlier, this should have been the happy ending. It wasn't, because in 1884 that company collapsed, and Henry Royce was unemployed again. 2 collapses in one lifetime. Most people would call that a pattern and give up. Royce called it a starting point. With almost nothing left, reportedly around 20 pounds in savings, Royce made the kind of decision that ends careers or starts empires. He started his own company, F.H. Royce & Company, launched in a small Manchester workshop with his friend Ernest Claremont. They weren't building cars, they were doing basic electrical repair work, fixing wiring, then manufacturing doorbells, light fittings, small bulb holders. But Royce ran it the same way he approached everything, obsessively precise, refusing to let a flawed part out the door. It worked. Within a few years, that tiny electrical repair shop was pulling in sales north of 20,000 pounds a year. Then the market turned on him. Cheaper German and American electrical goods flooded into Britain and undercut his prices. The stress of trying to compete without cutting corners on quality started wrecking his health. In 1902, his body gave out completely. Doctors ordered him to rest. His wife's family convinced him to take a 10-week trip to South Africa. A doctor also told him something that would change the entire trajectory of his life. Get outside more. Buy a car. Royce bought a French car, a Decoville, and almost immediately the same instinct that made him obsess over doorbell quality kicked in. This thing wasn't built well enough. Instead of just complaining about it, he tore the Decoville apart piece by piece to understand exactly why it underperformed. And then he set himself a simple, almost arrogant goal for a struggling electrical parts manufacturer with no automotive background. Take the best car that currently exists and build something better. In a corner of his own workshop in 1904, Royce built 3 2-cylinder cars from scratch, refined from everything he'd learned tearing apart that French import. He had no dealer network, no brand, no money for marketing. He had 3 excellent cars and absolutely no way for the world to find out they existed. That's usually where a great product quietly dies in a garage. One of those 3 cars ended up in the hands of a man named Henry Edmonds, a business associate of Royce's. Edmonds knew someone who might actually appreciate what Royce had built: Charles Rolls. Charles Rolls was everything Henry Royce wasn't: wealthy, aristocratic, Cambridge educated. He already ran a business importing and selling high-end cars in London, and he'd spent years hunting for a British-made vehicle that could compete with the French and German luxury brands. When Rolls saw and drove Royce's car, he didn't just like it. He told his business partner he'd found the best engineer he'd ever come across. Not the best British engineer, the best engineer, period. The two men met, talked terms, and reached an agreement fast, within months. Royce would build the cars. Rolls would sell them, using his connections and his name to move them into the hands of the wealthy, and they'd sell every single one under one shared badge, Rolls-Royce. In March 1906, Rolls-Royce Limited was officially formed. But a great product still isn't a great brand. They had the engineering, they had the distribution. What they didn't have yet was proof, something to show the world this wasn't just another car company. Royce's whole philosophy, obsessive precision, zero tolerance for flawed parts, became the company's entire marketing strategy. Instead of chasing speed records, Rolls-Royce ran punishing endurance tests, proving their cars could run further and more reliably than anything else on the road. That reputation for flawless, not flashy, is what turned Rolls-Royce from a boutique car company into a global symbol of prestige. Henry Royce would go on to be knighted for his contributions to British engineering, including his later work on aircraft engines that helped power the country through 2 world wars. But the years of overwork that started back in that Manchester electrical workshop never really left him. His health stayed fragile for the rest of his life. He died in 1933 at 70 years old, a homeless 9-year-old newspaper boy buried as one of the most decorated engineers in British history. Here's what actually built Rolls-Royce. It wasn't money, Royce had none. It wasn't connections, he had none of those either. It was a standard: refuse to ship anything that isn't right, even when good enough would be so much easier and so much cheaper. That standard survived a failed mill, a dead father, 2 collapsed companies, and a body that kept breaking down from overwork. And it's the same standard stitched into every Rolls-Royce badge sold today. Poverty didn't hand Henry Royce an excuse. It handed him a level of discipline that wealthier, better connected competitors simply didn't have. That's the part of the rags to riches story that usually gets left out. If you want more stories like this, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll see you in the next one.